and I were talking about with Jess.
Yeah.
Winner, winner, chicken dinner.
There you go.
Cheers. Yeah, I love it. Decaf. You had some before. Oh, you don't believe in drinking? Oh, tea. You're a tea girl. Tell me the time.
It was 6:58. 6:59.
I have 7 o'clock Rolex.
Your Rolex is on.
Probably better than Verizon time.
No, Verizon is. That's how you wear your Rolex.
A watch pot never boils. With Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, be advised that a notice of this meeting was made by posting on the bulletin board in Town Hall and forwarding to the officially designated newspapers that this meeting would take place at Town Hall at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, August 16, 2022. Meeting details and the draft agenda were also posted on our township website. Please all stand to salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Prupus? Deputy Mayor Thal Eglo?
Here.
Mr. Vinayak? Mr. Wasserman?
Here.
Mayor Miggins?
Here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I motion for the Township Committee to revise the agenda to move reports to later in the agenda before old business. May I have a second?
Second.
May I ask why, Mayor? Yeah, because we have other things to come on, so I'd like to move it to the end. May I have a second? May I have a roll call vote, please?
Deputy Mayor Thal Eglo?
Absolutely not.
Mr. Wasserman?
Yes.
Mayor Miggins?
Yes.
It passes. It's a majority of the quorum present.
Thank you. Thank you.
I know the rules do keep changing.
May I have a motion to approve the May 3rd, 2022 regular Township Committee minutes?
Motion.
May I have a second? Give me a second.
No, not there.
Okay,
You may.
second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Proclamation, drive sober or get pulled over. Mr. Wasserman, would you read the proclamation today, this evening, please? Thank you.
Yes. Proclamation. Whereas approximately 1/3 of all fatal traffic crashes in the United States involved impaired drivers, and whereas impaired driving crashes killed 11,654 people in the United States in 2020, and whereas impaired driving crashes cost the United States almost $44 billion a year, and whereas during the past 5 years, New Jersey roadways experienced a 33,798 crashes and 662 fatalities involving impaired drivers, and whereas an enforcement crackdown is planned to combat impaired driving, and whereas the end of summer Labor Day period is traditionally a time of social gatherings which include alcohol, and whereas the state of New Jersey Division of Highways Traffic Safety has asked law enforcement agencies throughout the state to participate in driver sober or get pulled over 2022 statewide Labor Day crackdown, and whereas the project will involve increased impaired driving enforcement from August 19th, 2022 through September 5th, 2022, and whereas an increase in impaired driving enforcement and reduction in impaired driving will save lives on our roadways, therefore be it resolved that Milburn Township Committee declares its support for the driver, sober, or get pulled over 2022 statewide Labor Day crackdown from August 19th, 2022 through September 5th, 2022, and pledges to increase awareness of the danger of driving while impaired by alcohol or drugs. Maggie Miggins, Mayor.
Thank you very much. So one would be led to believe
Yes.
that our police will be out in force.
Yes, so please don't drink and drive or you will be pulled over.
Thank you. Public comment. When invited to speak, please come to the lectern, clearly state your name and address, and speak loudly so that your comments may be understood by all and properly recorded. For the convenience of our community, there is a remote option available. If you called in and would like to comment, please press *6 now. If you are attending by computer or electronic device, please click raise hand button. All members of the public wishing to speak will be put into the queue to address the committee. Whenever an audience or committee member reads verbatim from a prepared statement, please email a copy to the Township Clerk's office at townclerk@milburntwp.org. To help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit all to be heard, speakers are asked to limit their comments to 1 3-minute session. You will be prompted when there is 30 seconds remaining. Each individual will be given 1 opportunity to make their public comment. Please be patient, and we will address each member of the public that wishes to speak. This is a business meeting, and please do not address professionals or staff directly, and please do direct all comments to me. A reminder that we are all neighbors and personal attacks will not be tolerated. I will now open the public comment period.
Jerry Kong, 17 Lee Terrace. I wanted to start by thanking you for posting the remedial investigation report that was promised last month. I do have some concerns with this report. So Section 7, the updated receptor evaluation. Under 7.1, it says land use within a 200-foot radius of the site consists of residential and commercial properties. No sensitive populations or uses were identified on or directly adjacent to the site. So I took a look because the middle school seems very close to the site. The building in the middle school is 161 feet away from one of the areas of concern. So 161 is less than 200. So I'm wondering why it's not listed in Section 7 of the remedial investigation report. The United States EPA, under what are sensitive receptors, says sensitive receptors include, but are not limited to, hospitals, schools, daycare facilities, elderly housing, and convalescent facilities. These are areas where the occupants are more susceptible to the adverse effects of exposure to toxic chemicals, pesticides, and other pollutants. Extra care must be taken when dealing with contaminants and pollutants in close proximity to areas recognized as sensitive receptors. The beginning of Section 7 says that the updated receptor evaluation was prepared in accordance with NJAC 7:26E-1.16. Well, the land use actually goes from 1.13 all the way to 1.16. So can you explain if this updated receptor evaluation actually follows all of the state statutes required? Because if it's not listing the middle school as being within 200 feet of the DPW site, then I believe the NJDEP should be notified of this. Other things in the report that are also very concerning. So if you go to the first page of the report, in fact, the first sentence of the report, Vanessa Hengen-Bruslin was retained by the Township of Milburn to conduct a remedial investigation of a portion of 3224 US Route 9. Do you know where 3224 US Route 9 is? It's in Freehold, New Jersey. It's not in Milburn. So I don't know who you retained to do this environmental site, but I don't think they know what they're doing. If you go down further, the licensed site remediation professional LSRP for this NJDEP case is Paul E. Drucker, LSRP number 577371. If you go to the NJDEP and look up who 577371 is, it is not Paul Drucker. It's Thomas Smith. So I'm really concerned here because the health and safety of the children at the middle school is at stake. And our town seems to have retained, I don't know, I want to be polite here, a circus to do this. So I'd like some answers to these questions. Can we have a second opinion as to, we need a second opinion in terms of evaluating the site. So can someone make a motion for that? Because I think this is too big of an issue to just let standing. And please don't interrupt me there because you're going to give other people more than 3 minutes and 10 seconds. So please answer my questions this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kung. Anyone else?
Hi, Jay Morelli, number 1 Claremont Drive. First, a couple of kudos. Great national night out earlier in August. It was a great event. The place was just packed with people. Great food trucks, just a great event. Great to see all of our law enforcement and professionals out there. Second kudo goes out to Joe Tobia, who I guess is the half person that we brought on in terms of doing zoning enforcement. I had a question. Joe came out, he looked into it. He literally went back, researched it, knocked on my door, gave me an answer, explained the whole thing to me. He was fantastic. So
Thank you.
kudos to Joe Tobia. My main question tonight is, it's kind of rhetorical. What can the TC do better to answer questions from residents? And by way of illustration, I'd like to walk through sort of the last year in the process of trying to understand what was going to be in the overlay zoning ordinances. After the settlement, I read through the settlement and I realized that there were going to be a lot of questions that still needed to be answered, specifically around building heights and other zoning requirements. So I asked not once, not twice, but 4 times, could we hold a meeting where we did an informational session? One time I asked was at the big middle school event I asked, and then 3 times at this meeting. And at the third one, if you recall, I literally just asked the question and then was prepared to sit here or stand here for 3 minutes until I got an answer. Fortunately, Committee Woman Eglo spoke up and said, yeah, why can't we just have an informational session? Alex said, be no problem. Graham and Alex set it up within a week or 2, and it was a great session. Not only, it was 2 great sessions, a matter of fact. And a number of residents turned up, and we asked some simple questions. Can we keep the building height at the current maximum, which is 3 floors? And we got an affirmative answer. Can we keep the setback at 50 feet, which is again the current, what was the current before the new ordinance? And the answer is, yeah, we can work on that. We'll keep it at 50 feet. Can we improve the buffer ordinance? Yes, we've got some small minor changes in the buffer ordinance, which made it better for residents. But we also found out what was included, and we were confused by, was this change for mixed use and residential in the same ordinance. So we asked, we met with a committee member, a neighbor and we asked, could you look into this? And we explained our rationale. My wife and I wrote a letter to the planning board saying, please check this out. We don't think this is required. We never heard back from the planning board. I wrote back to the TC member that I had spoken with a neighbor, and I received a response that said, quote, at this point, I'm satisfied that the ordinance is in proper form. Now, that's not really an answer to the question, why do we have multi-use instead of single use in the ordinance? And it wasn't the form we were objecting to, it was the content.
Mr. Morreale, just so you know, your time has passed. So if you could hurry it up, that'd be great. Thank you. Thank you.
So when I asked before the vote, my question was to anybody who's going to vote yes, why do you feel multi-use is better than single use? Not a single person answered the question. So my point is, we ask questions, they don't always get answered. And my request is maybe not so much to this TC, but to anybody who's running for the next TC. and I know there's several of you in here, please make as part of your platform what you're going to do differently to answer resident questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moriarty.
Good evening. My name is Jeffrey Feld, 11 Alexander Lane, Short Hills, New Jersey. Since May 17th meeting, every meeting I've been asking, where's our ticket to the final compliance hearing? I've been asking, where's the list of all documents that need to be approved? On Friday, Star Ledger published this ad, a full-page ad regarding cold tanks. The special master is our special master. This is a ticket to a final compliance hearing. Does not exist in this township. Why? As to tonight's consent agenda, as to the bill list. The last meeting I made requests for the time summaries. I still have not received them. Today, there was an opinion issued about over. Time summaries and bill list, those items are supposed to be produced immediately. It's very important that we be able to track how much money we've been spending in the fair share settlement. There's various payments being made. How much have we paid in the last 2 years? We don't know. A couple of months, there's also payments to condos. I believe that's probably reimbursement for trash pickup. But there's questions as to the condos. If the value of those condos are less than $350,000, they could be probably counted to our unmet needs for the fair share settlement, because fair share has said that they look so called condos for prices of $350,000, they could be maybe added to our numbers. This is another repetitive issue. I expect backlash from it. I ask questions, the difference between the operating fund and trust funds, of how we pay monies. Again, on this bill list, there's a payment being made to the food bank from operating funds. That might seem minor, but that's important to know the difference between trust funds, and that's reflected in the ordinance that we're going to be doing later tonight, amending the police, outdoor duties as to the 3 obligations. As to closed executive session minutes, the memo, I'm very concerned as to the first 2 meetings from last September, that there's redactions as to the legal advice. We know that some of the legal advice, based on the statement by the judge, might have been improper. There are exceptions to attorney-client privilege for professional negligence and for client fraud exceptions. I think the public should see what those are. Again, it's the fox garden, the hen house situation. I know today we're going to have an appointment of public works supervisor, who's also our forester. Will he still be performing the duties of forester? What will his compensation? Will he get a stipend for doing what duties? I don't know the answer to that. Quickly, as to the JIF insurance, we had to do it, but based on the audit that we're going to see, there's footnotes about our deductibles. And again, I'm waiting for the production of those documents from the last meeting, but there's a question about best practices. Other municipalities, even though the balance of their fees might be paid by the JIF insurer, because of our deductible, other municipalities, we are given notice to the town council, and they approve the retention of that party. And 2 years ago, I advised Councilperson Eglo that had happened, and she was not aware in the case of the bank litigation. But I think the public needs to know what attorneys are representing us in various matters. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Feld.
Hi, I'm Frank Sacamendi. I live on Lee Terrace. So a couple of questions. First, has the Township Committee considered a compromise to getting something passed for Canoe Brook? So in the recent Englewood Cliffs decision, it was determined that the unmet need is not site-specific. The housing obligation is not site-specific. So given that, couldn't we adjust the overlay zones a bit so that we could get, Tara and Diane on board? If you guys are so concerned about, losing our immunity, don't you think it would make sense to see if there's something that can be done there to adjust the densities in such a way that would, satisfy everyone's concerns. My husband and I have provided the township committee with the calculations necessary to make this determination. We've done that prior settings. There's also a video on the web about it. Simply put, if you were to set all the overlay zones to 15 units an acre and have OR1 be 20 units an acre, you'd actually satisfy a little bit more of the unmet need, and you'd more fairly distribute the densities around town. So maybe that's something you guys should consider in advance of the final compliance hearing, which at the moment looks like we're not going to be found in compliance. I also want to echo Jeff's question about how citizens can participate in the final compliance hearing. Why has this information not been provided? Other towns have done it. And then onto the environmentals for the DPW site. It was pointed out earlier this evening that the environmental report has a number of errors and omissions. This report cannot be relied upon. So I've been in touch with a group of well-organized private citizens that have expressed interest in hiring a licensed independent environmental firm to perform an independent analysis of the town dump. So I asked the township committee, if this group decides to move forward and they get all the necessary insurance requirements in place, will you as a township committee permit their independent environmental investigators to perform additional environmental testing? Because I'd say if you don't, then it's clear that you may have something to hide. So that's all I have for tonight. Thanks.
I think for full disclosure, Mr. Sacamanda, you need to let people know that you are the Republican candidate running for the Township Committee. Thank you.
Sounds like you just did.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I'm Tom Burns, live at 209 Long Hill Drive. I'm here to make a comment about plant growth, specifically bamboo. Let me explain my personal situation and then we'll see how it parlays into a township issue. My wife and I moved to Short Hills last December, and our next door neighbor has quite a bit of bamboo planted on their property right up against the property line that borders our lawn. It's a beautiful plant, adds to town aesthetic when it's maintained properly. Over the last 5 or 6 months, we've seen it encroach pretty aggressively. It is an invasive plant by nature onto our lawn. It gives us some safety concerns. We have 2 toddlers at home. Some of the shoots are 30 feet plus, and so it can snap in storms. Not to mention that it's winning in the competition again for nutrients with our lawn. So it does a number on the lawn. So we've seen new shoots pop up really daily, and we do our best to snip them down, but it does create a safety concern for our kids. My wife and I talked to our neighbors, and we asked them about it, see if we can find a compromise. But their situation is that they are renting the property, and their landlord is a man who lives in Atlanta and infrequently visits. We contacted their landlord. He didn't pick up the phone, but he did respond to text, and we found quickly that he was unresponsive and disinterested in finding a compromise. At that point, I turned to the township, filed a complaint to see if this falls under the failure to maintain property obligation. And the township was fantastic. I had people at my door promptly. They were professional. They were polite. They took a look at our lawn. They were fantastic, but understandably, they're working within parameters. There's no ordinance right now against bamboo. And so they were handcuffed essentially. And so they reminded me that we could, cut what's on our side of the line, but that's really about it. Obviously, that's not the long-term solution we're hoping for. As this encroaches deeper and deeper by the day, and it's time-consuming and dangerous. I reached out to some friends and family for advice and heard the same thing, which was to hire a lawyer. That struck me as incredibly aggressive and not very neighborly. Nonetheless, I did end up calling a land use attorney, explaining the situation, asking for some thoughts, and learned, to no one's surprise, that the cost of going through a lawyer very quickly is greater than the cost of implementing an underground containment system. So, so again, here my goal here is not to lobby against bamboo in general. There's no reason to penalize the members of the community who maintain it properly. But I would think that we're not the only ones in Millburn who have such a situation. We're probably not going to be the last. And I see a situation here where it would be reasonable and logical for the township to step in, given that there's A, visible damage to an adjacent property, and B, a reluctance from the property owner to communicate with us. Given those two things, it would seem logical for the township to step in and say there's need for either containment or removal. And seems to me a lot cheaper, a lot faster, a lot more efficient than litigation, for crying out loud. So I hope that's something the township can take into consideration. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Jess, we have anybody online? Awesome.
Hi.
Good evening.
Hi, I'm Susan Blackburn. I live at 11 Inwood Road in Short Hills. I don't know why my picture's not showing, but
We can hear you.
okay, great.
Oh, we see your picture.
Yeah, I know. I don't know why I'm not like my regular, my expressions, or I guess it's a webinar, that's why.
Yes.
But anyway, let me not waste my time. I am calling because I have recently found out that we don't have an animal control officer anymore in town. We share one with another town. I'm not exactly sure what the situation is, but I think we need to reevaluate that decision and have a dedicated animal control officer in town. And
Okay.
I hope that you could put it on the agenda as soon as possible.
Okay. Anything else?
Thank you.
Okay.
No, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Blackburn.
Thank you.
Hello, this is David Cosgrove. Can you hear me?
Good evening, Mr. Cosgrove. We can hear you.
Good evening, folks. David Cosgrove, 99 Oakview. I have a question, and I'm guessing probably for Alex, but perhaps for your counsel, but just as a preface, the settlement agreement that the town entered into with Fair Share required the town to make a payment to Fair Share to make a donation. And it also required the developers, Woodmont and Annie Says, to reimburse partially the town for the money that the town had given to Fair Share. So the question is, has the town collected the money from Woodmont and from Annie Says? Thank you.
Thank you. What are we doing there, Jess?
Hello,
Good evening.
good evening. Thank you. Perry Urso, 514 Milburn Avenue, Shore Hills. Happy summer.
Good evening.
So I just wanted to say Friday evening, August 12th, sometime after closing, an incident occurred, however, was not reported. Then once again, Saturday night, August 13th, 2022, another incident occurred on or about 11:30 p.m., which was reported. You don't research or look into things until something happens to you. Why isn't Milburn actively utilizing their police blotter like most towns? All other municipalities where I pay taxes into provide its community with a service called nixle.org. Have you ever heard of this? I researched and learned that Milburn is currently not registered. So why is it that Milburn is not reporting daily activities and crimes? During further research, I surprisingly found that surrounding municipalities are registered, as in Maplewood, South Orange, Springfield, Chatham, Summit, Cranford, Sayreville, and even as far as Spring Lake. My next comment is, why is it that we are being treated with such disparity? I received a cursory response to my civil rights violation from a labor attorney from the Township of Milburn, being told to fill out a form which I believe has never been approved by the Township Committee. Kindly advise. My next comment is Bear Property is awaiting Township's response by this Thursday to a motion which is returnable August 26, 2022. What is the status? And lastly, I'm still waiting per Ms. Prupus's request regarding the proposed changes to Lot 14. Thank you, and I appreciate your time and have a nice evening. Good night.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, Sarah Sherman, 42 Greenwood Drive. This is very brief. Mayor, we're having trouble hearing you all, except for the people who called in. I barely heard Mr. Wasserman and heard very little of public comment from the people in the audience. So you might want to look at your audio. We're struggling to hear you at home. Thank you.
Ms. Sherman, can you hear me right now?
Yes, ma'am.
So you can
But-
hear me?
I can hear you
me,
now.
Sarah, can you hear me?
Now I can,
Okay.
but public comment,
Can we
was-
check that microphone?
every few words perhaps. So thank you.
Or maybe we can take one of
Yeah,
the,
public comment was a little bit on the lower side. So if you bring that closer,
bring it closer.
hopefully we're able, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Sherman. Thank you, Sanjeev. Okay. Speak loud, Mr. Carlin. Speak loud.
My name's Al Carlin. I live at,
You know, the video looks like jumpy. Is there something wrong with the video? Watch when Al walks up.
Yeah, I'm not sure if what we're seeing here is the same as what.
Or what the recording will be if people watch at a later date.
Al Carlin, 246 Milburn Avenue, Milburn, New Jersey. I live at the Park Ridge, a home of numerous violations. I'm interested in compliance. I think we've had about 80 violations so far this year. Fire violations, we had 25 permit violations. I went to court, as a matter of fact, filed my first motion in Superior Court of New Jersey Law Division, Essex vicinage. First time I've filed by myself in court. Usually I get attorneys, but they don't want to take me anymore. So, for concerning all the violations, the management company is Campson. The superintendent does not live on the premises, even though according to the registration, they live at 240 Milburn Avenue. And things like that. Point is compliance. We are going to have more apartments in Milburn. Who is going to handle the compliance, making sure that the rules and regulations are adhered to? We have compliance officers. That is the point. We want to have safe apartments. We want to keep all of our residents safe. Where I live, we have people, we have tenants. We have a hematologist, we have nursing people, we have social workers, we have a lot of people that are necessary to the community by what I feel. They also contribute as far as buying locally. I do. Spend hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Mayor, we cannot hear, just FYI.
But in other words, the people who are living in apartments usually don't come up and speak here, as you know.
Yep.
But they do contribute. They do spend locally, as you know. They do go to Taylor Park. They do go to John Marco. I do. I spent many, many years having my dry cleaning done locally, getting my shoes fixed locally. And this is important. I think this is the community. It's buy local. And so I think this is important for the future. I'm sorry about that.
but I think it's important. I live at Park Ridge, Campson is the management. They're huge, premier, 11,000 apartments they manage. Let's do things properly. That's all I'm asking for. Thank you very much.
Thank-
Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mr. Carlin. I will now close public comment.
If I may have the floor for a moment, Mayor, I did not know that Committeeman Vinayak was attending the meeting. So I would like to make a motion that we consider listening, sharing our reports, since we do sit on very important subcommittees. So I would like to put that motion forth, that we are able to share our reports with the community because they might have wanted to comment when they had the opportunity. So I am making a formal motion that we are able to share our committee reports before we move on.
There's a motion on the table. Does anyone wish to second? Seeing none, thank you. Okay. Consent agenda resolutions. The Township Committee will now consider consent agenda resolutions. Are there any comments from the committee in regards to any items listed on the consent agenda? Committee? No?
Do you want to say what they are for the people who are at home who might not have the agenda in front of them?
The bills list, you mean? Sure.
No, the consent agenda is what we're voting on.
Bills list, authorize refund of tax overpayments, authorize a contract for landscaping, renewal of membership in our JIF insurance fund, approve and release certain closed session minutes, authorize advertisement of bids for snow removal for 2023 season, authorize beer and wine and parking of vehicles in Taylor Park for Oktoberfest, confirm appointments of Superintendent of Public Works, approval of raffle licenses, and approval of sidewalk cafes. May I have a motion to approve resolutions 22-187 through resolution 22-196, which are listed on the consent agenda?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Deputy Mayor Thol Eglo,
Yes.
Mr. Vinayak,
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman,
Yes.
Mayor Miggins.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Resolution 22-197, which is to amend the Township Committee meeting schedule for the November meeting.
We weren't going to answer any of the people's comments that we usually do after a public comment.
We can do
glossed
that. We'll
over
do it
that.
at the end. No, we'll do it at the end. I just want to get through these resolutions and then we can do it. We'll do it. Are there any comments from the committee in regards to resolutions 22-197?
Well, why don't we explain to the people why it's on there and who put it on there?
I put it on there because what I noticed was that the November meeting, and there is only one meeting in November, happens to fall on election day. And that's never happened for a general election for the Township of Melbourne. So I thought it prudent that we move the meeting so that it isn't on election day and instead is after. Does anyone have any comments? Mr. Wasserman?
No, no, ma'am.
Ms. Eglo?
Well, I don't really see the need for that. We've never moved a meeting. We've had primaries on Township Committee meeting nights. I think the calendar was set last year. We knew it was election day. And the following meeting, we will know who has won. In full honesty, I am on the ballot as independent with my running mate, Dave Mara. We have
Not appropriate,
candidate
Diane.
here.
Not appropriate.
I'm sorry, Maggie. So I think that would be prudent to have whatever business brought before the Township Committee and the public with the sitting committee and not having any hindrance upon us.
At the last when we had the primary, people had concerns and complaints about the fact that it fell on a Township Committee meeting. So we thought it prudent to move it to.
I guess we should be more careful when we set the calendar
We
a year in
should,
advance.
we should, but that doesn't mean you can't make changes. So
As we see.
as we see, may I have a motion to approve resolution 22-197? Richard,
Motion.
may I have a second? Thank you, Richard.
Was he snoring?
Sanjeev,
Was that
may I have a
snore?
second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Deputy Mayor Thol Eglo,
No.
Mr. Vinayak,
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman,
Yes.
Mayor Miggins.
Yes.
Thank you.
So now we are in receipt of our 2021 audit. And fortunately, our auditor is available for Township Committee questions. Copies of the audit in full are available in Town Hall upon request and have also been posted on our website. Our auditor is available this evening if there are any questions from the committee. I'd like to introduce our auditor, Brian Coe, so he may provide a brief overview of the audit and corrective action plan. So Brian, I'm going to ask you to really talk up loud, or Alex, do any of these microphones move? Can we get that hand? I'd prefer that.
That one comes off.
I know, but I want everyone to be able to hear. If Ms. Sherman said they couldn't hear, that's not good.
Oh, I think should be all right, right?
Is it off? Or-
I'll intervene if I don't
Mr.
hear him.
Benoit, would you do that and let us know?
Sure.
Thank you.
Is that better? Can you hear me now?
Well, we can hear you.
Yeah, I
Sa-
think it's coming through the PA.
Sanjeev, do you hear him?
If he says few more words, then I can confidently say if I can hear him or not.
Okay, Brian Coe. I'm the audit manager for the Township of Milburn here. I have been in Nissabacha for 12 years now. Can you hear me all right?
It could be better, so
Okay,
Speak
all
you're
right.
just about there.
Okay, it's a pleasure once again to complete your audit for the 2021 fiscal year. Because of a strong financial plan and management over the past many years and a constant eye on the finances, the township has been able to maintain a
This is
strong
better.
financial position. I have a few comments from the audit, a few highlights rather. The current fund balance increased $4.1 million. You did this while maintaining your various reserves, tax appeals, revaluation, litigation, et cetera, other reserves. As a result, you decided to use $6.8 million for the 2023 fiscal year's anticipated fund balance. So all those funds that were increased fund balance in 21 was used in 22 as anticipated fund balance. Your tax collection rate remained at 99%, and your reserve for pending tax appeals was 1.07 million at the end of the year. Highlights of a few trust reserves. The storm recovery reserve, which was originally snow recovery, but has been since changed to storm recovery to be used for hurricanes and the like, is at 853,000 at the end of 2021. A sick leave is approximately $1 million, which funds approximately 21% of the liability of $5.1 million at the end of 21. For parking utility, the fund balance at the year ended at $784,000, which is a decrease of approximately $317,000. During the year, the township paid down $850,000 on the parking debt for the construction on the parking debt. The debt is currently at $3.1 million. That's at the end of 21. And in the 22 budget, the plan is to pay down 1.6 million of those notes. So that's about half of it, or more than half of it that's left. Additionally, in capital and general capital, you have outstanding short-term notes of $6.5 million, and that's relative to 5 different capital projects, including South Mountain Drainage, Complete Street Phase 1 projects, Slayton Pump Station, Mountain View Road reconstruction, and the Recreation Turf Field. We did have one comment recommendation this year. It was in regarding employee health benefit deductions. This has already been fixed in the accounting system, so there's not going to be a problem going forward. And we did have a couple suggestions which are noted on page 11 of section 3. These are all very boilerplate. They're things to just look for in the future about grant funds, making sure that we maintain all the documentation for those, because even though we didn't have to audit the grant funds as per our requirements, it may come back in the future that somebody might have to. We'd like to thank the township for your continued confidence in us. We'd like to thank Matt for his great work throughout the year. And does anybody have any questions on the annual audit?
Is that good?
No, it's terrific. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Wasserman?
Well, it sounds like we did very well, and you hold us in quite high regard comparatively. Is there anything else? I mean, is there anything else that's not listed in the report that we should be doing that other towns with a similar financial outlook are doing? Like, are we doing everything we can to be responsible in terms of our finances?
Yes, I believe you are, particularly with reusing that fund balance that was generated during 21 to be used in 2022 and keeping that tax rate at the, I believe it was a no increase in local tax rate for 22.
That's right.
Correct.
So you used the money that was made in the year before to help fund the next year.
Right, terrific.
Mr. Vinayak, do you have any questions, sir?
No, I like what he said. Even in 2021, we did not increase any taxes.
No, 2 years in a row.
2022, the same
Correct.
way, local taxes were not increased. I remember there were a lot of sayings when 2021, we did not increase any taxes, that 2022 will be horrible. We will increase more than required. And in 2022, we are financially sound. And that's a great thing for Melbourne.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. May I have a motion to approve Resolution 22-198?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second,
Roll call vote, please.
Deputy Mayor Ethel
Yes.
Mr. Vinayak,
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman,
yes.
Mayor Miggins.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. 22-199 is the approval of the corrective action plan. Are there any comments or questions from the committee pertaining to Resolution 22-199?
Can this be explained again?
Sure.
What is
No.
the corrective action?
Speak loud.
Yep.
Thank you.
So this was in relation to all the employees of the township who are covered by our health insurance have to contribute a portion, a percentage of their health insurance. It's a sliding scale based on the plan they have and the salary that they're currently being paid. You know, if someone gets a jump from 65,000 to 70,000, they have to pay a little bit more of a percentage. And it's the percentage is depending on your family plan, a married spouse or parent-child plan, and a single plan. These were, the auditors did a sample of these. Some of them were being calculated based on 2020 rates, which was a minimal increase to 2021. And this is something that, you know, when I started in October, I actually noticed maybe November, December, and we had already changed as of January 1st. We built kind of this calculation into our payroll system. So it's part of the bi-weekly payroll process. So we're hoping that this is something that won't occur again in the future. But again, it was kind of a minimal employee basis. And like I said, this is now a built-in process.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Mr. Larcy.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Are there any other comments or questions from the committee pertaining to Resolution 22-199?
No.
No. Okay. May I have a motion to approve Resolution 22-199?
Motion,
May I have a second?
Second,
Roll call vote, please.
Deputy Mayor Ethel
Yes.
Mr. Vinayak,
yes.
Mr. Wasserman,
yes.
Mayor Miggins.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ordinance on a second reading and consideration of adoption, ordinance 2620-22. Ms. Dahl Egler, you are scheduled to sponsor.
I present for consideration an ordinance entitled ordinance number 2620-22. Ordinance amending and supplementing chapter 7, traffic section 7-20, stop intersections of the revised general ordinances of the Township of Milburn. The proposed amendment to the traffic ordinance is to authorize the installation of an all-way stop signs at the intersections of Myrtle Avenue and Elm Street. This all-way stop has been recommended by the Township Traffic Bureau, Engineering Department, Pedestrian Safety Advisory Board, and on-call traffic engineer, Brightview Engineering, due to their close proximity to the Wyoming School and to further control traffic and pedestrian mobility in the area. Tonight is the time set for public hearing and final passage as advertised in accordance with law.
I declare the hearing open.
I would like to say that I am very pleased that this is happening. I think there are more intersections in town that could definitely be benefited from all-way traffic. We talk about this at the Pedestrian Safety Advisory Board, PSAP, and I believe they're looking into some of the larger intersections in Hartshorn. Any others, Alex, that are on the radar to be looked at by Brightview and our engineering in-house?
No, just the Short Hills train station area. that
Right.
area.
And the,
circulation.
yeah, and the forward Hartshorn in the
Correct.
poet section.
Both sections.
Yeah, okay, great. I move that the public hearing be closed and the ordinance be adopted on final reading, and the township clerk be directed to publish the ordinance by title as passed on final reading in accordance with law.
May I have a second?
Second,
Roll call vote, please.
Deputy Mayor Paul Eglo,
Yes.
Mr. Vinayak,
yes.
Mr. Wasserman,
Yes.
Mayor Megan's.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ordinance 2621-22. Mr. Wasserman, you are scheduled to sponsor.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to present an ordinance entitled ordinance number 2621-22, an ordinance to amend and supplement the revised general ordinances of the Township of Millburn, Chapter 2, subsection 2-16.9, entitled Off-Duty Employment of Officers for Police-Related Activities. Statement of purpose. The purpose of this ordinance is to revise the language in the Township of Millburn's police off-duty ordinance to codify the current rate schedule and require changes to the township's off-duty fees charged be modified by ordinance. This ordinance will insert the current off-duty fee schedule and make other language contained in the ordinance with new fee setting procedures. Alex, would you like to walk us through this?
Sure. So in the township's ordinance, we have codified off-duty employment of the police officers, which is work that they do for a third-party contractor, say PSE&G, New Jersey American Water, J. Fletcher Kramer, somebody like that, in order to provide traffic safety and site safety. That is not something that is paid directly by the contractor. We have recently moved to a third-party fee scheduler or company that helps, collect those fees and schedule those off-duty jobs. And so a lot of municipalities with those types of moves, Jobs for Blue, are codifying their fee schedule rather than changing them by resolution, and therefore inserting those that fee schedule directly into the ordinance. And that's what this is doing.
So if a utility has a job and they need a off-duty police officer, the fee is laid out. There's a third party that will handle the transaction.
Correct.
So that makes, I understand that.
Does a third party take a percentage, take a rate, a cut?
They do. They take I think it's 8% of the overall fee. Yeah. It's but that's why it has to be codified in here. Like the administrative fee is $8. So the township still gets, I think, $5 of that fee, and then the third party Jobs for Blue gets $3 of it. So
I think it's important that the residents know that there is paid direct by the contractor or JCP&L or PSCG, because when people assume it's just coming out of our budget and they see cops working overtime. So I think it's really important.
no, and just to sort of maybe clarify that even further, Deputy Mayor, is that we also receive a fee for the vehicles that are being utilized during those times as well.
And right, and and other towns are doing the same, and it's this is pretty standard stuff.
This is almost every town does this unless they're governed by the state police or something.
Thank you.
Okay. I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, and that the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with the law in the item and for hearing and final passage on Tuesday, September 20th, 2022.
May I have a second?
Second,
Roll call vote, please.
Deputy Mayor Paul Eglo,
Yes.
Mr. Vinayak,
yes.
Mr. Wasserman,
Yes.
Mayor Megan's.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Reports. We will now consider reports. Our professionals and committee members may directly report on matters under their purview. Please only directly report on matters and do not request that of other members or professionals. A reminder, it's not a time for dialogue or to debate. I'll start with our business administrator, Alex McDonald. Do you have any matters to report on, sir?
Just a few, a reminder to the community that the Hobart Gap and Hobart intersection is under construction. There will be road closures intermittently in that area as a result of that work. And glad that we're getting that done over the summer here. that portion of it. Just also keep in mind that there will be a lag between the site work that puts in the equipment and the work that actually puts up the mast arms for the signals, as there is a supply issue with those mast arms, and they probably be about I think it's about 16 weeks behind. So, yeah.
16 weeks, okay.
Yeah. It's and hopefully it's one of those under promise over deliver type of things where they do come sooner. Just wanted to report that the township has received the grant to do the Short Hills Park survey. We had completed that work, went through the proper paperwork and all of that with SHPO to get that work in the CLG grant. So we did receive the check for $24,500 for that work that was completed. That's all I have to report, Mayor.
Awesome, thank you. Mr. Carney, do you have anything to report?
I have no report this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Wasserman, do you have any reports for us?
Yes, Mayor, I do. I just want to talk about for a minute that our flood mitigation committee is doing a great job. That we have 2 projects that we're waiting for bids to come in. I believe they're due back by August 25th or around the 25th. And those 2 projects will be happening in the South Mountain area. And I had a resident send me a clipping from the item from 1962 when a similar project like this was proposed. The township debated it, and they were going to charge the residents a fee. And after much debate, it was dropped. And this is a similar project, and I'm very proud that our committee is going to accomplish this, and hopefully the shovels will be in the ground in the next couple months. So I just want to thank all the volunteers that have been working on this, and pledge that flood mitigation is coming to South Mountain. In addition to that, I also want to highlight that Explore Millburn will be celebrating its 2-year anniversary, and just want to also commend those volunteers for all the good work that they are doing. There is a party at the Boxcar coming up for all SID members, either property owners or merchants in the SID. And so I want to highlight that. There is a Rocktoberfest preview and car show coming up on Saturday, September 10th from 11 to 2 p.m. on Upper Millburn Avenue. The event will feature 3 bands, classic cars, and local vendor sales. And this is exciting because this is, years ago, we used to have a lot of classic car shows, and this is fun that we're going to have that come back to the township.
Do you know where, Mr. Wasserman, where they're going to put the
Yes,
cars? And
Upper Millburn Avenue.
okay,
So I guess it'll be more of like a festival, and there'll be bands, and the cars will be out on the streets, and I'm happy that that's where it's happening.
awesome.
Also, Botox and Brews Thursday, September 15th from 5 to 8 p.m. at Evolve Med Spa. Join us for an open house, learn how men's skin health and enjoy a great time with the Evolve team. Also, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that our wonderful Rocktoberfest is coming back on September 17th from 12 to 10 p.m. If you haven't been to Rocktoberfest, it's a must-do for Millburn Township. So please come out to Rocktoberfest. It'll be the whole day. There's so many great things happening. It's here to support the Ed Foundation. Also, Explore Millburn has released 4 commercials featured on YouTube. These are for our businesses. Please check out Saigon Cafe, Casa de Natas, the restaurants on Restaurant Row near the clock tower. Also, we just released the new Meet the Merchants commercials on YouTube. Rudy's Body Works, Home Instead, Dulce Salon, and by Kitchen and Designed by Kitchen and Bath. So those are just some of my reports. And the last thing I just want to touch on is that for our parking deck, there is signage that's being worked on. And after many years of planning and thought, this is going to be happening hopefully in the early fall.
The signage for the parking deck. And to just speak to the parking deck for a sec, we did find something that was awry on the top floor that we're looking into. Is that correct, Mr. McCarthy?
Yeah, I mean, there is a crack on one of the spandrels in the, at the top of the deck, the very
Okay.
top. And I reported that to the township committee. Structural engineer has already been out, and we'll be shoring that up. It's not it does not pose a danger to the public, so.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Mr. Vinayak, do you have any reports for us, sir?
Yes, Mayor, thank you
Thank you.
for the opportunity. Flood mitigation, as Mr. Wasserman has spoken about, I would like to bring to everyone's attention, it's almost a year that we had Ida. So let's be very careful this time again. Flood timings are here. There is a flood mitigation page on our website that lists more than required information or a lot of information that could be very overwhelming, but we have one pager flood mitigation team has been working on. We were going to talk to Alex on putting that on that flood mitigation page as a floating page. So as soon as someone goes in there, at least they have a summary version of it. I'm not sure if he got the chance to hear from anybody on the flood mitigation team, but it would be great to have that page on our flood mitigation homepage. So they are not looking at clicking links and reading about it. At least the summary will be floating. So again, be careful, be cautious out there. It is the flood time. So that's that. And tomorrow we have a flood mitigation meeting, public meeting at 8:30 in the morning. Sorry, I won't be able to attend, but it is there as scheduled. Second thing I wanted to bring up, and this is to bring up to the Township Committee. I've been thinking about this on the 9 Main Street a lot. We have one builder, RPM, that is in the mix, or that we are negotiating the contract with, or the negotiation are still on. We have soil test that was done. I know we chose one out of the 5 or 4 who presented. And if things don't work out with this one, then we go to the next one. Just in the spirit of negotiation, I wanted to bring it up and see what your thought process is. If we can bring in one more builder into the mix now versus later. So just purely on the negotiation side, so we can get the best of the world on, or best of the deals that we can on the 75 units in that approximately 2-acre space that we are trying to, or that we have signed the deal with affordable housing. So I just wanted to first
Thank you, Mr.
see
Vinayak.
what your thought
Okay.
is, and then I can put a motion on the table to vote on it.
Mr. Carney?
I think that has legal implications that I would have to look into. I mean, you're actively negotiating a contract right now with RPM.
And what?
Oh, he just wants to look into it.
Well, I think we need to look into what the implications might be, and then you can have that further discussion.
I agree.
Okay, while Mr. Carney is looking at it, and legal implication, if there is any legal implication, we cannot get the second builder in, then we can wait or stop there. But putting
Mr.
that on the
Vinayak?
side, Ms. Mayor, just a minute, please.
Sure.
Putting that on the side, if for the negotiation purposes, what are my other coworkers thinking? Should I just make a motion to vote? Because if there is legal implication, we will not move ahead, even if there are more than 3 people or 3 committee members vote for.
Well, wait, I'm curious, Sanjeev, are you talking about bringing in a completely new builder or one of the others that we already had RFPs, RFQs? Are you talking about starting this process from scratch?
Existing one from the shortlisted ones. I'm not including anyone new in here, just getting one more builder in play.
I would like to say that you along with Mr. Wasserman and Ms. Miggins were the only three who approved RPM, and Tara and I stand absolutely against their project. Everything about their project, I think, is wrong. In fact, I believe, and I've said this many times, that the entire 9 Main Street needs to be looked at as one cohesive plan. And in my reports, I can talk more about that. And I'm not going
Okay.
to say it now.
So, Ms. Eglo, I'm only talking about what is out there from the fair share housing on the 2-acre space. We have already discussed this, and my, again, thought process is the same, but I'm not sure where you stand on what I'm asking. I'm just,
I don't know what you're asking. It doesn't make any sense. So no, it has to be. No, it makes no sense, Sanjeev. I'm sorry.
okay, that's fine, Ms. Eglo. What about you, Mr. Wasserman?
Well, I understand the spirit of what you're saying. In other words, the spirit is that it would be good before we, if there was a more competitive situation. In other words, to make sure that we're getting the best deal that we can get. So I think that's kind of the spirit of what you're saying, which I understand. My only concern, I guess, is really more of a legal point of view for Mr. Carney. Is this Brad, is this something that you'd like to kind of look into to give us some guidance on, or?
Yes. I would like the time to do that, yes.
Okay, so again, there are a lot of talks that have been done in the past that we have given the building to the builder for $1. No, that is not the case. It was just presented and hinted that way. So we are still in the negotiation phase. I'll wait for Mr. Carney to come back and give us that legal advice before I put this in motion to vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vinayak. Do you have any other reports, sir?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Okay, great. Ms. Vallegro, do you have reports for us?
Certainly do. Thank you, Mayor. So as you know, we all sit on subcommittees, and a lot of important business takes place at the subcommittees. And because of the sunshine laws, we can't talk about it until we get up here in front of you. So I believe the reports are very important, and there might be residents who want to ask about that. So I hope after the reports, if there's anything that is of interest to anybody, they are given the opportunity to speak again in public comment. So first, I am pleased to report on something that I've been advocating for several years. It's coming to fruition. The Development or Technical Review Committee is moving forward. The DRC shall be established to review all site plan applications for development or requests for review presented to the Planning Board and the Board of Adjustment. The DRC may also be empowered by the Planning Board to act as the minor site plan committee to conduct reviews and approvals of all minor site plan applications that do not require a variance relief. We are in the process of finalizing the language with our planner and the subcommittee, and other details will be hopefully ready to be presented at our September Township Committee meeting. I don't know if Graham will have that ready. The goal is to streamline and make the process easier, less cumbersome, save time getting before the boards with a complete application. This could prove to save the applicant thousands of dollars. I've been hearing for years how difficult it is to get things done and approved in Milburn compared to other towns. And we are working to change this because we want a vibrant and welcoming town. The next subcommittee is the Taylor Park Gateway Committee, has been delayed because the majority of our members have either been away or have not been available to meet with MKW. A little update, we are, of course, decided to maintain the Rose Garden. However, it seems that MKW's plan may be too expensive. And I want to state that my original intent several years ago was to clean up the entrance along Milburn Avenue, especially the broken bricks, which have proven to be dangerous. Clean and remove the old dying trees and shrubs, replant with native species, replace the cracked walkways surrounding the roses and leading down into the area. We may have to consider scaling back what MKW offered, rethink a reasonable and affordable plan. I suggested to the group at the last meeting and to MKW that we sell paving bricks as a fundraiser. About 1,000 people signed the Save the Rose Garden petition, and I believe that they would probably be excited to put a paver around the Rose Garden. So I believe repairing, replacing the broken and dangerous brick walkway along Milburn Avenue is a priority. When of course we will be maintaining the roses and the large elm tree at the entrance. Another thing I've been working on with our planner is to construct a dumpster ordinance. I brought this up at several meetings. In the meantime, good news, the properties behind the standard have agreed to share a compactor. I believe one for dry and one for food scraps.
One for cardboard.
One for cardboard.
One cup for cardboard, one for
Okay.
garbage.
This will absolutely help to keep that area sanitary and organized. I don't know, maybe they want to have one for scraps. I know when I sat on our sewer commission, the joint meeting, food scraps can be picked up and utilized at their power station. They've had tremendous success with that program. There's also, to prevent the dumpster from traveling to the river, you will notice there's now a fence and bollards have been constructed, working with those property owners. The parking utility committee met. We are still only at 50% pre-COVID permits sold. The parking deck is currently very underutilized. Perhaps we might want to consider repurposing the first floor frontage that is not in the flood zone for commercial tax generating ratables. Retail, microbrewery, financial offices, things permitted in the B4 zone that would activate the streetscape and bring shoppers and desired tenants. I think that could make Essex County a little more, Essex Street a little more exciting. Luckily, Joe D did pave that after many years. And that I'd like to segue into the overlay zones crafted by Ms. McManus and Ms. Miggins and Mr. Wasserman, that they will have a serious negative impact on the B4 downtown zone. Prior to the, I'll call it the unfair share housing settlement agreement, there was no density restriction in the B4. I have been hearing from many of our B4 property owners that they were hoping, and some even had plans to develop the airspace above their first floors where permitted. This would have also worked to revitalize our downtown while not having an impact on our residential homes and neighborhoods, and brought in taxable market rate units with the 20% set aside. That would have counted towards our fair share obligation and not segregated housing. As a result, the B4 zone with this new 24 units per acre proves that there was no planning in the overlay densities. Again, I will say the settlement overlays must be amended. The overlays where zones were developed with no parity and no forethought. Clearly, no planning as to what their effects would be on our entire township. For an example, the 40 units per acre along Milburn Avenue where the commons are located, currently medical. The 150 units approved for the former Annie Says site is 69 units per acre with no traffic impact study to address the corner or to consider the possible future two-way traffic now under study. There are many reasons we must go back to fair share housing and look to amend the settlement agreement. One important fact is that I, as a sitting TC member, along with our residents, were kept in the dark to its details. Ms. Miggins and Mr. Wasserman were clearly conflicted, as I stated quotes from them from a former township committee meeting, as to why their neighborhoods were kept out of the overlays. Again, they were at the table with Ms. McManus, and they are not talking how anything we were forced to vote on in a rushed form by Mr. Buzak was decided. As Committeewoman Prupus and I have stated many times, Milburn did not have its own planning consulting at the table. Our current planner was brought in after the fact. Full transparency, Dave Morrow and I are running as independents.
Ms.
in
Seglow, that
November.
is not
Well,
appropriate
you
for your sitting
wanted-
up here on the dais. You are sitting on the dais as a sitting township committee woman, and that is not appropriate. Please continue with your reports
up
on
for
your
re-election.
committees,
Ms.
on
Miggins?
your committees, on your committees. That's what we're talking about,
Mary,
committees.
I'm not a child, Ms. Miggins.
Well,
Do
then-
not speak to me that way. I am up for re-election.
Stop. That is inappropriate. Inappropriate.
It's very appropriate. Okay.
Inappropriate.
We are speaking to a lot of residents. There's absolutely no community support for the 100% affordable project that is slated for the DPW and current dump site, except from you, Ms. Miggins, Mr. Wasserman, Ms. Vinayak, and their political party surrogates. That takes me to my next subcommittee meeting that I unfortunately do not have a report on. That is the development agreement for RPM. Now, it was just stated that we are actively negotiating the development agreement. Well, we haven't had a meeting. So Alex, I asked you this, if you have met with our financial consultant, with Ms. Miggins, I do know When I was the mayor is afforded private meetings with you and certain people. Have there been any meetings? Well, we've had meetings when I was the mayor.
Yeah, I have meetings with you as well,
I know, that's what I'm
yeah.
saying. I had a lot of.
as a
meetings with
committee
you.
woman as well. not
Yeah,
just
yeah.
mayor.
So have there been any meetings or discussions with, I believe his name is Bill?
Bob.
Bob. Discussing, you say you're actively negotiating 9 Main Street.
We
Is
are-
that true or not?
No, not right now. I'm acting, but what we did, and I had to mention this to you, was that Joe Marizini, myself and Graham
Mhm.
had met with RPM. I had an initial meeting with them.
Okay. I don't know where Mr. Benayak also wants to get another builder in, but I don't know where that came from. All right, it was stated before by Mr. Kung, the environmental report is on the township committee, on the township website.
It is under the 9 Main Street project.
Okay, so I tried to find that. I was not able to find that. Jesse, I will not make you start flipping through the website, but if you say it's there, Alex, I will look again. I believe in April, you reported that by June, which is 2 months ago, we would know the details of moving the dump, the DPW, to a new location, its timeline and the costs. What is the update on moving the DPW?
Oh.
That you.
So at this point, as I had stated to you before, there's not much to update on that particular subject. We've been focused on other compliance mechanisms, such as the overlay zones and those things. And those meetings have not yet taken place. So
Okay.
we're working on it. though.
All right, so
We're really focused on it.
just because I asked you in private, I think it's important
That's
that we
fine.
share this.
Sure.
So just so people know, at that DPW is not only the dump site that needs to be moved, it's the salt dome and the gas pumps used by our first responders and our township vehicles. So there's a lot involved and as dictated by the fair share settlement agreement, we have to have shovel in the ground by October 2023. That's basically a year away. If we're not in compliance, what happens? If we can't have the DPW site moved, what
Yeah.
happens?
I would assume the exact same thing that's happening now, where fair share housing would look to enforce litigants' rights or the settlement.
So they would force us to build on a site that's not ready?
You can't speak for
asking me to
them.
predict- Yeah, you're asking me to predict the future of what fair share housing will do in that situation. I'm not able to do that.
So do you foresee that this is going to happen by
Mr.
October?
Mr.
2023?
McDonald has answered all the questions.
Ms. Meggins, I'm having a conversation with Mr. McDonald. Is that no longer allowed either?
It is, but he's answered all the questions that he's supposed to, and you've had these questions answered to him. We, at this moment, are not doing anything until after we've gone to the compliance hearing with Judge Gardner on September 16th. Everything else is hearsay at this point, because until the judge approves anything, there's nothing that will be happening until the judge approves it. And then you cross that bridge when you get to it, but you have to wait until the judge tells us as we know, a compliance hearing is a checklist, is what I'm told. So we wait till we get to September 16th, and then we can bring this up again. In my opinion, you can't do anything, we can't do a thing about anything until September 16th, when the judge decides whether or not we're in compliance.
Well, we all heard the expression to be proactive. I think we need to be proactive in just in case.
We shouldn't be spending the township's money. We are guardians of the public purse, and we shouldn't be spending money on attorneys or on planners or anything until we know that the judge feels that we are in compliance.
Okay, so to Mr. Feld's point, if Coltonek is allowed to have people at their compliance hearing, we're not, is that something different?
Is that what he said? He said they put a full page ad in. Didn't say that people were invited to speak there.
Oh, well, then,
Everybody's able to participate in a proceeding, by
Okay.
viewing it.
well,
I don't know that he said that they.
I
they
also
can speak
don't
there.
think we can speak for the judge. I think
That's-
it's up
that's
to the
also very
judge,
true.
for the judge to tell us what he wishes to do. And as soon as we are told of that, we will then put it out to the township, and we will put it on the website, and we will put it on all of our social media channels, and we can put it there. But until we have that information, there's nothing we can do until the judge releases it to us.
okay,
That's
well,
correct.
I'm trying to say that we should be proactive and protective, because if there is a chance that residents could speak, then we should just know about that. Okay, moving on. Richard, you reported on the flood mitigation committee. I also couldn't find on the website, if it's there, that 2D flood modeling report that stated downtown, if Footer's building was removed, things would be worse downtown in flooding.
Yeah.
Is that on the website, that 2D modeling report?
It's not.
Can we get that on there under their, sorry, can we get that on the page under their flood mitigation?
I don't see why not.
Okay,
We just have
because,
to ask Mr. Rushke
Yep.
to prove,
Yep.
to,
Yeah.
okay, perfect.
okay, because I think that people don't really understand how that really means that the flooding would be worse if a building is gone. So let's get that up there. Ms. Miggins, is now the time to answer our questions from our residents during public comment, or do you want to give your report first?
No, we can go.
Okay, I just want to say, I'm also shocked, Ms. Miggins, that once again, the rules have been changed, right, when I'm sitting here, that you changed the agenda. I don't know if you've spoken to your other committee members, but I was shocked that our reports were moved to the end of the meeting. I don't know why.
What questions would you like to answer? Ms. Eckler?
Well,
You
that
said
was
you
my
had
question.
questions.
Yeah, that was my question.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you. Keep going.
I'd like that on the record. Well, thank you. I will keep going. Okay, in my 5.5 years on this township, it's more than 5.5. I have never seen rules change. We just approved rules of procedure, which moved public comment officially to the beginning, and reports were there. So I just want to say that the shenanigans of making changes is disconcerting to me as a township committee person and questionable to our residents. And there should always be a second public comment for things that have taken place during the meeting. To Jay, Mr. Moriali's point and your credit, you were following very closely what was going to affect your neighborhood. And we did get that public information session. Unfortunately, the South Mountain and Wyoming neighbors were not as clued in, but now they are very concerned. So I think that is another reason why this overlay zone must be looked at. I don't believe it's too late. If we could get one more committee person to work with Committeewoman Prupus and myself, before we have that compliance hearing, explain to Fair Share Housing what the issues are. Again, there is no community support for the 100% affordable housing project at 9 Main Street. If there is, someone should send me an email, because I have not met one resident who is an approval of this, except the
Ms.
three.
Eckler, could you
Miss
finish
Miggins,
answering
I
the
am
questions?
speaking.
You're pontificating.
I am,
You're
because-
supposed to be answering the questions for the people who have asked the questions. You've responded to Mr. Moriali.
Okay,
Are there
Miss-
any other questions that you
Yes.
feel you can answer?
Mr. Burns, who has left, I did invite him to come tonight and speak about the bamboo, and I did tell him that I do not believe any kind of townwide ban is good policy. And the Environmental Commission, which I believe you're the liaison this year, Maggie, should re-look at that ordinance, and we don't want to punish our good residents who actually take care of their property. So before we just smack on a townwide ban, which you're in favor of, that I think we should be very careful and cognizant that we do have residents who have beautiful landscaping, and we don't want to just punish everybody and hit a thumbtack with a sledgehammer, as former Mayor Burson used to love to say. I like that one. One other thing I'd like to say, and I will say this, I have been watching other towns, their township committee meetings, and I brought this up a lot. We're not allowed to also have old business and new business unless we do it 10 days in advance. And I did want to have some new business and old business brought up, that our meeting room is not in the best condition for our residents. We should have a static podium with an attached microphone. We should have cushions for you to sit on. We should have a really great video and audio system. And I think a town of our caliber can do better. We just need, of course, 3 committee people who are willing to invest the money in this town hall, because what we have, I don't think it's great for you, and we can do so much better. So, thank you.
Mr. Wasserman, do you wish to answer any questions?
Well, I do want to, just something Ms. Egloff said, I just want to make sure that everybody knows that you also voted for the settlement agreement, if you left that part out.
No, and yes, we had about a week
Yeah,
to
and you
do
were
that.
also updated updated by Beth McManus, and you also voted for it.
Well,
I just
Mr.
wanna- I
Wasserman,
just want to clarify that.
let's clarify that twice. I have
Mr.
tried to do a
Vinayak, do you have
motion.
any, do you
Okay,
have
so
anything
we
that
can
you'd
all
like
see
to
the
address?
wrongs. We,
Mr. Vinayak?
Thing is, when I hear Ms. Eglo saying only if one more TC member joined Ms. Prupus and Ms. Eglo, basically you're saying that there are, out of 5, 3 are agreeing on something and 2 are not agreeing on something. Well, guess what? You lost that vote. I lost the vote just before the question I asked. That's so be it. Just live. You will have to live with it. I mean,
I'm not
the
living
thing
with it
is-
happily, Mr. Vinayak, and neither are
Yeah,
our
you
residents.
can. always there is debate back and forth, and I'm not saying that is wrong, but I guess you don't have the support on that, and on things that I don't have the support. Okay, so be it. I try. And if there is no support, I guess people know better. If there are 3 people saying no to something, they may have thought something else.
Thank you, Mr.
Wait,
Vinayak.
Thank you.
wait, Mr. Vinayak, I want to ask you a question.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Ms.
You don't have the
Miggins,
floor.
I am
I'm
not
giving
taking
you the
any
floor.
questions
I
here,
know
Ms.
you, I
Agnew,
will
from you
say
especially.
something. Ms. Miggins,
You'll wait.
I will speak.
Mr. Vinayak.
I thought your report was done.
No, I want to respond to you. Well, Mr. Vinayak, you all of a sudden now want to bring in a brand new or relook at this settlement, the builder for 9 Main, but you won't look at the entire settlement agreement that has our citizens
The
up in arms?
same comment you brought up when I brought up the point. I don't know what is different that you're asking now.
Thank you. Questions to answer.
Or animal control.
Animal control? Mr. McDonald?
Sure.
We've had a couple of people talk about animal control
Yeah.
to us recently. So is there something that we need to look at?
Well, I mean, I can just answer the question or clarify
Sure.
what the statement was, is that we currently contract out animal control services with Animal Control Solutions. We do not share animal control with anyone else. However, Animal Control Solutions does service surrounding communities such as Springfield, Summit, Westfield. So that is our current animal control provider. We retain, we have individuals in Public Works that have the ability to respond in certain situations. In particular, in the past, we've run into some dead deer situations that I think are important for us to respond expeditiously to. And therefore we have DPW guys that are able to do that. But that's a clarification on that.
And the DPW guys work 7 days a week. Is that correct? If they have, if we get a call, no?
Well, I
Or
mean,
a deer
yeah,
or
they're on
something like
call.
that?
They'll
They're on
come in.
call.
However,
They're on call is what I meant
straight
to say.
time, they're
Yeah,
here.
they're on call. So if perchance somebody has a dead animal that they wish to have taken care of, they can call.
Well, I think we just need to clarify too, because I think there's at times animal control can be one of those things where people call for certain reasons that may not constitute a call to animal control. However, things that we've run into in the past are larger animals such as deer being dead or dying in someone's yard that I think constitutes a call to the non-emergency number at dispatch.
Okay, terrific.
Sorry, Mayor, I just want
Yeah.
to clarify on one other thing. Mr. Cosgrove had asked the question about the check, the payment to Fair Share Housing,
Yeah.
which was $85,000, and then the split from 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 between the 2 developers that had become interested parties in the settlement agreement and the township. That is all complete. Fair Share Housing has been paid, and we have been reimbursed by both Woodmont and Annie says.
So we made the initial outlay.
Correct.
And then we were reimbursed.
Correct.
Mr. Feld brought up something about the time summaries and the bills list and not getting the answers, the information right away, but insisted that he has to get the information right away via Oprah request. There's time frames with Oprah. Is that correct?
Yeah, we just have to look into that further, what his statement was. But yes, I mean, generally speaking, and there are probably other rules as Mr. Feld stated, but generally speaking, Oprah is is 7 days to respond. However, you can seek extensions from the clerk's office to do that, depending on the volume of Oprahs that are coming in, the amount of records being requested, that type of thing.
Okay, that's great. And then the food bank, because I saw that on the bills list as well, on the budget, there was $1,000 payment made. Tell me about that a little bit. Is that where people give money to the food
Correct.
bank? So people will give anonymously donations to our food pantry, and then we take that money and go out and buy gift cards. Okay, that's how that works. Terrific. As far as Mr. Doty, he is now in charge of the Department of Public Works. Congratulations, Mr. Doty. He will be serving still as a forester or no longer serving as a forester?
He will no longer serve as the forester. We currently have a part-time individual in Jeff Pilot, who serves as the town's arborist. However, obviously Tom still has the certifications and can be of assistance in any of those matters.
Will we not be having a full-time forester anymore?
Not at this time. However, we are looking into other options as well.
Why are we
So
not replacing?
I believe Mr. Doty was already in DPW last year, And the part-time forester was actively involved in shade tree. So he moved up to become the supervisor, but his role was very limited on the forest side, but he is still certified to take care of things if needed. And I'm saying this because I liaison with shade tree from TC.
Thank you, Mr. Vinayak. Again, with the final compliance hearing, we don't know anything until September 16th. That's when the final compliance hearing will happen. We have no knowledge of how the judge is handling it because they haven't sent us anything. But as soon as we receive it, we will send it out to all via our website and our social media channels. Somebody asked about that. As far as the bamboo for Mr. Burns on Long Hill, I know that the Environmental Commission will be meeting with us in September and going over different things that they think are important. Bamboo might be one of the things that they're mentioning. David Cosgrove, we got to. Mr. Kung had some questions about the 9 Main Street report, and so we
I'll
just,
take those
you'll,
back to-
you'll take those back.
to Mr.
Terrific.
Drucker.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate that.
Great.
Ms. Eglo answered Mr. Moriali, we answered Mr. Bell, just making sure everybody's covered. Susan Blackburn. Ms. Urso asked about some incidences that are occurring. I have no idea what she was talking about, but did talk about some company. You want to look into it? I don't know what that company is, but she had talked about it.
She's asking about when we start the project for lot 14, which we have not yet.
Okay, we haven't started that.
I don't, and I'm unclear what the beginning of her comment period was, but I think she was talking about when Ms. Prupas had asked me whether she would be involved in the conversations when we start to redesign and look at lot 14, and that has not yet started, but of course, everyone in that area would be involved.
Perfect. And she asked about pending litigation, and we don't discuss pending litigation.
And she asked about Nixle.
Yeah, what about the police blotter? I know that recently, like for instance, recently our police captured 4 people stealing cars, and I want to send kudos out to our good police for capturing them. But are incidents, I mean, is there towns that report this on a daily basis, or, I mean, should we be reporting this more often? I think that's really the gist of it.
That is something I'd have to look into. I can't,
Okay.
I can't speak to what every town does or what every town around us does. However, there are towns that utilize Nixle for other purposes as well. It's their a way of communicating. I am familiar with what Nixle is. And we do put our police blotter out every 2 weeks. It's located on the township's website as well as shared with Tap Into and Patch and all of that. So I think it's just something we'd have to look into.
Could you look into that and report back and just tell us what that is, and if that's something that would make our police activities more transparent? Maybe we can look into that.
Sure.
Mr. Carlin asked, sounds like an awful lot of violations at that apartment building that he lives in. So I know that our police, our fire department are always out there, and our code enforcement are already out there a lot as well to that Park Ridge. There was one thing that stuck with me was, does the super have to live there? And if they say that he's living there, does he need to be living there? Is there some type of violation with that? I mean, if the superintendent's supposed to be there, maybe we could just look into that for him. Audit. I think that's everything. Okay, terrific. Old business. There are no items listed for old business for discussion by the committee this evening. So we have that. And then there are no new items listed for new business for discussion by the committee this evening. So
Wait, a resident just asked, are we gonna be able to have a second public comment?
no.
No.
You could do that next time. Sure, you could do that next time. Thank you. There are no new items listed for new business for discussion by the committee this evening. May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
One more thing I'd like to say, Rocktoberfest is a huge event in town, and they're always looking for volunteers. So Joanna Parker Lentz, and I don't know who else on her committee, Carrie Strasberg, and that you can find them on Facebook. They're really in need of a lot of volunteers for the huge day. And I'm sorry about no second public comment. Email me.
May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm opposed.
Thank you. Have a lovely